it actually allows me to ask a question about what you mean by program officer. How did you see yourself and how did you engage? Because that's more an operative level thinking. Like, it's not strategic. You're already taking strategy and you're supposed to be implementing it. You're supposed to be taking those ideas and breaking them down. How did you, or what did you learn while you were there about that process?
The organization there is much more lean than government for sure, but also than where I am right now in business. It's a very small operation. And in that sense, me, the other program officers, which, that's the title is program officer, in some sense it's a project manager. There's different ways of sort of looking at the role. It's a bit of everything. It's also wait a second, what program do I want to implement, which goes back to strategy and saying, okay, if this is the budget I have for the next year, this is my wish list, but I can only, put in my shopping cart so many things on this budget. So what am I going to prioritize over the other? And there's the strategic one. And then there's the sort of, from there, like you said, you start breaking it out, and then what, right? And taking it to the next level, which is if you have an idea who the right partners are, which is already borderline between strategic and tactical decision making. It's all the way down to how I manage my budget, how I see it executed, how things happen. And I think for me, if I sort of go back to that life story, I think there was a lot in common there and with being the shaliach, the Jewish agency emissary in Sydney, because in Sydney, when you're working for the Jewish agency in any place in the world, you're really kind of on your own on the ground. So in Sydney, it's a big Jewish community. There are more than one shaliach. There were 5 or 6 couples of us at the same time, but each of that still operating like in your own sort of silo. And in that sense, my support system, the Jewish agency, we're located primarily in Israel. Okay, it's like big time difference, travel difference. They're not the people who know the community. They're not the people who know what's going on in the ground. So I have to decide what I want to do at a strategic level, and then I have to take the resources I have, prioritize them, implement it, and see things happening. And I think in that sense, those two things had very similar traits to what was going on. And I'd also say that if we spoke a lot about strategy at the beginning of our talk, both those roles also help you dictate strategy, because you can understand strategy really well, but if you don't have the ability to look 3 or 4 steps ahead and say, okay, this is a great vision, but to implement it, this is what you need to do, then you can come up with great skyscrapers that stay on paper and are never built, right? And there's a commander I had in the army who once said that I can plan the best operation possible, but if no one fuels the Jeeps, we're not going to go anywhere.
Right. So that's that stage that you're talking about, that middle ground that you're talking about. It's called the operative stage or the operative level, depending on whether you're talking hierarchy or process, right? And it's not the tactic. It's not the actual maneuvers. It's not the actual getting the pieces into place. It's that stage where you look at resources and you say, okay, this is ideal type. This is what we want to do. This is how now I've been given these resources to do it with. I have to break these resources down, and I have to give them value statements. This project is more important to us, or this part of the project is essential. This is a nice to have. This is a have to have. Okay, well, that means this has to get resources. If I have resources over, then this can get, right? That process of prioritization, that's operative level thinking. It's not the grand decision of vision, but taking it and breaking it down into its parts and setting clear objectives that will allow for tactics to take place.
100%. Yeah, I think I'm talking about that, and I'd say that maybe there's like sort of another, I don't know if there's a term for it or not, but like another in between, which is I understood the vision of the foundation. If we're talking about the Ruderman Family Foundation, they wanted to connect Israelis to American Jewish community. That's the vision, right? And now within there, there's strategic work to be done about mapping out who those Israelis are, right? So are you talking about academics? Are you talking about journalists? Are you talking about politicians? You know what? Take it completely different shift. Are you talking about social activists, about school teachers, about anyone, business people? It can be a lot of different sort of things there. And there, it's still not quite operational yet. It's still a little bit at the strategy, but that strategy already influences the operational and is influenced by the operational. It's already this, sort of give and take game that you're playing.
That's the connection between them, right? It's interesting because if you think about strategy as process, I like to say that every strategic part or every part of the greater creative process we're talking about has a 3-stage process in it, where you have to sort of connect to the stage beforehand and say, okay, you've given me information. Now I need to take that information and I need to analyze it, right? Which is my own little strategy within the greater picture of strategy. I need to take it and analyze it for my work as an operative at the operative level or during the operative stage. I need to understand it. I need to create my own little knowledge tree about that, right? This is my branch that I have to have different little branches on and leaves on and whatever, and then take that and say, okay, as a result of that, now I can seriously focus on how I implement that. It goes well with like Simon Sinek's why, how, what, right? Why is like that whole like really focus on the strategic, but even when you're at the operative level, you're gonna have your why because you've been told to focus on this thing, and then your job though is to really focus on how that's gonna happen so that the what can take place. I think that's really, really cool. Thank you for joining us in the Doctor's Den. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.